So there I was, standing in line to get dinner on the first night of our Memorial Day build of 2025. And as I stood in line, the smell of tortillas and fresh cooked beans weighed heavy in the air. The moments before, I'd spent speaking with my team and seeing old friends, being in the all too familiar YWAM base. As I stood in line, plate in hand, ready to receive my meal for the evening, a young woman who began to serve me stopped. She stared at my tattoos and then at my face and back at my tattoos, and she began to rapidly speak Spanish. Now it's loud and chaotic, and she had a very small voice, so I had to strain my ear to hear what she said, asking her to repeat it multiple times. Partly because I couldn't hear it, but partly because I couldn't believe it. And I tell you right now that if I hadn't been there myself, I'm not sure if I would believe this story. She told me that you built my first house. And my brain racked through all the different builds I'd been on over the last 16 years. Who could this young woman be? And then one name popped into my head. I cocked my head and leaned in and said, "Nancy?" Her smile grew big and her eyes grew wet as tears began to fall from her face. This was Nancy, the little girl I had built for on my very first trip to Mexico when I was building with New Life Church. It was my first experience in Mexico where God began to heal me from trauma, showing me that there's healing through serving God and serving His people. As I stood there in line, I was stunned and I felt my face get hot and my heartbeat quicken as the emotions of the moment began to overwhelm me. I asked her, "How did you recognize me?" It had been 16 years and we both look very different. She told me it was my tattoos. That as a young child, she was mesmerized by their design, and it had imprinted in her mind. Seeing those tattoos recalled those memories, bringing to the forefront the emotions that she had felt on that day. Now, not a 3-year-old child, but a 20-year-old young woman, she had decided to volunteer with YWAM because she wanted to build houses for other children just like her. Before I took that trip, everything seemed very routine. It had been 17 years of building and 10 years of leading teams, and I began to question, did I need to continue doing it? Could I just make a graceful exit, fold the organization, and continue on with something new? And as I sat there in that moment, God gave me one of the most incredible gifts I've ever received. A full circle moment where I got to see the impact that I made all those years ago and the fruit it was starting to bear. Most times in our life, we spend helping others, serving, building, growing the kingdom, and we never get to see the impact that we make. In these rare moments, over long periods of time and with consistency, we might just see some of the fruit that comes to bear. And that was this moment for me. So will I continue building homes for the homeless in Mexico? Yes. Will I continue leading teams? Yes. Most people, they won't notice all of the early mornings that you spend working on your craft, all of the late nights and stress that you endure, all of the missed holidays and missed family gatherings that you spend working on your craft instead of hanging out with friends and family. Nobody's going to notice, nobody's going to care. But with time and consistency, these rare moments will come to bear. And you will be able to see the fruit of all all of that time and energy you spent working on your craft. So when you feel like giving up, don't, because the fruit's out there. You just may not see it yet. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sgt Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Jess, you were on this trip.
Yeah.
And so you got to see the whole thing happen, but you didn't see this part. You heard about it later when I was telling the story.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the brain science. Like what happened? What happened? How she recognized me as she saw my tattoos. So what actually happened in her brain? This is called the limbic imprint recall. It's where a memory that has a deep emotional connection can be triggered by seeing something, by seeing some sort of familiar cue or sign. This happens a lot in a trauma response as well, where people call it being triggered, but it can also happen with good memories. She didn't recognize me, and she'd probably served hundreds of volunteers, but what she did recognize were the tattoos. And this tattoo specifically, I was going to get covered up this year. I had plans to cover up this tattoo, and I just hadn't done it yet because it's a tattoo I got when I first got back from Iraq, and it's a reminder of that. And I wanted to cover it up with something better, something that was more meaningful to me. And so that was my plan. But now it has a new meaning.
Yeah.
It's that full circle 10-year moment that I had with Nancy.
Yeah.
So pretty cool moment that I got. 16
moment.
years. What did I say?
10. Because
10.
You've been leading teams for 10.
I've been leading teams for 10, but I had actually built for her 16 years ago when I was just doing this with my church.
Yeah.
So it's not just nostalgia that she experienced. It's actually a neurobiological confirmation that the work that we do really matters and it makes lasting impact.
Yeah.
So what I experienced in that moment, scientists call that the intrinsic reward memory. So that's what I experienced. So she experienced a limbic imprint recall and I experienced what's called the intrinsic reward memory. That's why my face got flush, I got emotional, and my heart started pounding out of my chest because I was so amazed that 16 years later, this little girl that I'd built a house for, that moment was so impactful on her that she wants to do that with her life. And I got to see her at YWAM as I'm leading another team. You can't write this stuff. Like I said, if I wasn't there, I'm not sure I would believe somebody telling this story.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Jess?
Well, my thoughts are a couple of things. How when we're feeling discouraged, overwhelmed, underappreciated even, like our work isn't seen, right? God has such an incredible way of saying, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings me back to, right, who am I living for? It's a good reminder I'm living for an audience of one.
Right.
And that I'm not going to ever see the fruit of those nights that I cry myself to sleep because of all of the clients that I'm bearing their burdens with them, or all the effort that goes into teaching a class and 30 people say, I can't wait for your next class, and 2 show up.
Yeah.
Right? There's like so many discouraging moments, but the one that brings life, right, is God's, for me, right? It's God's way of saying, I see you and I appreciate you. And don't forget, like, you're doing it for me. And it's a great reminder. And I'm so glad that he did that for you, because the work that you've done over the last 10 years, 16 years, right? Work on yourself. But the last 10 years, right? And we've talked about how I was able to go with my husband on your first Q Missions Memorial Day build in 2016. And, you know, we got, there's a few people that have watched my husband and I over the last 9 years. And the biggest feedback like I heard was just how much we've grown, right? And in our marriage and individually. And if it wasn't for Operation Restore Hope 2016, right? God has a plan, so he would have still fulfilled it in some way. But it's nice to trace the foundation of that growth to that mission trip.
Yeah, and it's just the catalyst. Like, you can't go there and just think that this is going to solve all of your problems. You're going to get the tools and the training that will equip you to be able to rebuild your life, which is exactly what you did. You took those tools and that training, you said, hey, there's something else out here, and you continued. You went on additional mental health retreats. You began to invest in your own mental resilience. You went to school. You became a counselor. You've gone through tons of training to be able to get to where you're at.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, I feel like, treat the trip like, hey, I'm going to have this great experience, but that's all they're going to do. They're not going to apply any of these teachings. And I was feeling really discouraged. Like, I was going to quit after these 10 years. I was really considering, like, I'm not going to do this anymore, because so many people, as I looked at the last 10 years, I looked at so many people that had fallen away. So many people that came and didn't do anything with the training, and they went back to their old life. They got divorced. They, ended up drinking themselves to death. They, lost. Literally, right? Like, we look at all these people who turned away from all of this teaching. And I just thought, like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of over it. And so this was an incredible moment, especially the 10-year anniversary. It really falls in line with the book that I'm writing right now, This Is the Way, where I went through that cave in Vietnam, and I wrote myself a Bible study for each day, and I went through it. I took notes, I prayed, I worshiped every day, trying to hear from God. And what he was showing me was that all of this stuff that's been done in the dark, all the work that he's been doing on me, he's been carving me into a masterpiece. And now he's starting to reveal that to the world. And it's not for my glory, it's for his.
Yeah.
And it's to show other people that they can have the exact same thing. 17 years ago, I was living in my car, homeless, right here in Auburn. I didn't know where I was going to eat the next day. The only thing that changed, because I've worked hard my whole life, the only thing that changed was finding God and starting to read the Bible and understand that this Bible is a blueprint for how to live your life, especially here in Washington. So many people reject this idea, and that's fine. You can reject it and continue to struggle. Or you can accept it, read it, apply it. You're still going to struggle, but there is a reward at the end, which is eternal salvation.
And it reminds me of, I have quite a few adolescents that I counsel. It's kind of where the enemy got a foothold in my life. And it's just such an awkward phase in your human growth and development, right? Where you're like, still, like, for me as a girl, like, you're still that little girl some days where you like believe everything your parents say, and then the next day you're like autonomous and a free thinker, right? We want to encourage that free thinking in our kids, especially during these phases, right? But with that free thinking comes literally free thinking, like whys, like, why do bad things happen to good people? And why am I going to follow a God I don't see? And why do I have to say no to these things that make me feel good in the moment, right? It's that dying to your flesh and living in the spirit concept that every individual person has to go through on their own to experience that personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Your parents' or mentors' faith can only help bring you so far until you have to walk out in faith on your own. And that's one of the things that I like to walk through with my adolescent clients is A, it's normal to have these questions, and B, if I were to look back at my life and all the hardest points, genuinely, if I'm being honest with myself, if all the hardest points of my life were the times I turned my back on God and tried to do things on my own. And if I look at, if I get to my deathbed and I look back on my life and for some crazy reason, right, I die and God wasn't real, but I'm genuinely looking at my life, the only thing that kept me semi-good was my relationship with Christ and wanting to honor him. And if I didn't have that hope, if I didn't have that relationship, I don't know what kind of monstrous person I would be. And so that journey looks different for everybody, right? And some people are going to say, well, some of your beliefs, because you follow the Bible, make you a monster. But let me explain something to you. I would be much more of a monster than what you're probably thinking in your mind. So at the end of the day, I can accept sober-mindedly that anything good that I have in me comes from my genuine relationship with Jesus Christ. And I don't know if I totally went on a rabbit hole with that. No, we were kind of talking about that, right?
Yeah. No, we're there.
Yeah. So
Our intro's just taking a really long time, but that's okay.
I think this is a great Holy Spirit led, maybe separate podcast, Casey, because I think this is really important things to talk about. And I think it, especially unpacking our missions trip together, right?
We should totally do that.
Because our audience, our regulars have seen the inaction, right? When you would like come up surprisingly on me, be like, hey, Jess, we're here in Mexico. And I'm like, oh, we're doing this now. Okay. The 16-minute video from Memorial Day weekend. Anyways. And you guys, if you watched last week, you got to see this really, really cool special guest episode, and we love that too. But I think we would be missing a great opportunity to not unpack a little bit of that journey, of that build, because of our connection to it, with me being able to go on the first Memorial Day build with you guys.
Yeah, it'd be really cool, Jess, actually. Let's ask our fans and our followers, do you have questions for us about the build? You guys write those in, put them in the comments. Casey's going to be snatching those up, and we'll answer those questions right here. Or if you want to give us a message about growth that you've seen. Maybe some of you have seen us for a long time. And so write us a little note, the growth you've seen in us, how we've impacted you, maybe questions you may have, and we will go through those, and we will create an entire episode on that mission trip and how it's affected not just us, but the greater community, what I call the sphere of influence. Every time I'm teaching in Mexico, I'm telling people what I'm giving you is not just for you. It's for your sphere of influence, to teach this to your friends and your family and your coworkers. It's not just for you.
Yeah. Another part that I want to unpack just a little bit, we don't need to go into detail, is the growth in relationship that your wife and you and my husband and I have been able to overcome through this. Because so many people bow out of relationships when things get hard, or when we hurt each other, when we're all human beings and we're going to hurt each other, especially when we're broken, right? The saying hurt people is true for a reason. And we were able to joke about it this year in our debrief, which it was a beautiful thing. But just so people know, the first build was, the first Memorial Day build, right, was so incredible in good ways, and it was very hurtful in other ways, because my husband and I were really broken, and Sgt Q and his wife were on their mental health growth journey as well. And it was their first organized Memorial Day build. And I was still so heavily medicated back then for all of my challenges mentally. And one way that I've grown so much is I'm very, very mildly medicated now, which helps. But we had a major challenge in our relationship with them, and they were hurt and we were hurt, and they sat down with us and we broke bread, and we walked through the awkward years, literally, of how do we rebuild from such pain and agony. And Sgt Q and his wife, they walked through the awkward years with us when we were like, okay, what is this going to look like? How is this going to recover? Is this going to recover? And it has recovered.
What's really great is all four of us have been very intentional with building a relationship. Very intentional with it. And
Yeah.
that's the point. A lot of people are just like, no, I'm not going to deal with this. But you have to be intentional. You have to make
Sure.
the rational cognitive decision that I'm going to build relationship. That's my goal. And so then you start to put things in place to be able to do that.
Yeah. And be uncomfortable and walk through those awkward years or months, right? And have the hard conversations and cry and be vulnerable and apologize and take accountability.
So do you remember? I remember this where we had this conversation and we were in a coffee shop. And do you remember the old guy that came up?
No.
You don't remember this?
Dude, I try to block this whole scenario out.
No. So we were trying to have this conversation about, hey, this is what happened. We want to reconcile this, but I can't have people undercutting my authority when I'm out there on mission.
Mm-hmm.
I need you guys to just fall in line so I can get everybody else, across the border or on to the next part of the mission.
It wasn't me not falling in line.
And I'm like, I just need you guys, if you guys have a problem with it, let's take it up later. But in the moment, I just need you to fall in line. Otherwise, you cause dissension and it makes it really hard for me to accomplish the mission. And I was having that conversation. And I remember this old guy comes up and right in the middle of when we were talking about this, and I know now this dude was definitely a demon, definitely an unclean spirit. But he came up and he said, I wouldn't listen to any of that. If anybody told me that I had to just listen to them and fall in line, I'd be out of there. And that's what he came up and said to all four of us. You don't remember this?
No.
This was in the coffee shop.
Genuinely.
At Fred
was probably
Meyer's in the
medicated.
coffee shop. I want to say it was Cutter's Point in Covington that had a little coffee stand. Or maybe it was Pete's Coffee inside the Fred Meyer's right there in Covington. And we all four were having coffee and we were talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And that old guy came up and he just said all of those things. And we all sat there stunned, like, what the heck was that? And then the conversation just ended abruptly.
Yeah. Well,
But I
praise God we
remember-
didn't listen to him.
Yeah, no, I remember that guy coming in and like, who is this guy? Nobody asked your opinion.
Yeah.
And still the very unhealed Sgt Q wanted to just snatch that dude up and stomp him out right there. Like that was exactly how I felt. Like,
Right.
okay, I'm gonna snap this dude.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt. Like, I don't know who you think you are. And if I saw that guy today, I'd probably still have that same feeling if I'm honest.
So it's not one of those good, what's that big word that you used in your story?
Yeah, no. This is a trauma response.
Limbo.
Limbic memory recall.
No, so it's not a
Not
limbic
one of
memory
those.
recall.
No,
No.
this is a bad one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've
Yeah.
grown. We've intentionally spent time together. We've gone on vacations together. We have meals together. We do this podcast together.
Yeah.
We're very intentional about the things that we do.
Yeah. And that's probably what people saw, right? Was that first year, my husband, he jokes with veterans all the time. I don't know how you guys do it. I can't, right? He's that super rebellious spirit that, in weeks to come, we're going to talk about some of the neurodivergent things, and he's very neurodivergent. One of them is oppositional defiance disorder. So like you say the sky is purple, or you say turn right, he's going to turn left. It's just like his nature to just be oppositional, right? And so the military would have probably done really great things for him, but
Or really bad things.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But man, his growth at humbling himself and say whatever Sgt Q wants, whatever he needs. Like, it's just been, that part's been really cool for me to watch.
Yeah, and we've really developed a friendship over the years, where we've helped each other through some really tough times where, he was struggling with some stuff at the church or I was struggling with some stuff at the church, and we could just be that sounding board for each other.
Mhm.
It's been really cool relationship.
Yeah. And leading each other back to the cross. Right?
Always,
Always.
right?
And,
Exactly.
and to submitting to God first and foremost, and one another, right? Because it talks about submit to one another as unto Christ. And yeah, so, today,
You know what's funny? Okay, so I gotta bring this up. This is becoming a whole new episode.
Yeah.
But this is so funny because I'm remembering a time where Billy was in a leadership position and he was having people who were undercutting his authority. He was complaining to me about it. And I'm just staring at him in the mirror because he's cutting my hair. I'm just staring at him. He's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Are you serious? You serious right
I
now?
remember when you
Are you
told- you
complaining
told me
about
that.
this? Because this is exactly what you did to me." And he was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's what I did." Now, because before he knew, but he didn't truly understand until somebody did it to him.
Yeah.
And when they did it to him, he's like, "Now I see exactly how hard that makes the rest of everything that you're trying to accomplish, how hard that makes everything else." And so it's just this really fun moment that we got to have together.
Isn't that so true? You know, like until you experience, right, on the receiving end of something like that, you really just don't know.
And before that, he'd been like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Like, he understood that.
Sure.
But until that, somebody did that to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my gosh, that's how that feels. And I see how much more difficult everything else becomes when somebody does that to you. Yeah, it was a fun moment. It was a fun moment.
I remember him coming home and telling me about that. That's great. Well, another really cool thing about this trip was we got to bring our youngest daughter with us, Autumn. And it's really cool because at the last minute, I was like, you know, my oldest, she wanted to go. She was like, because she went when she was 10 and she got that experience to go to a third world country and to build a home for a homeless family and to take them shopping, to get them basic needs.
Oh, we call them underdeveloped nations now.
Underdeveloped nations. Okay. And she got her one-on-one with Sgt Q getting, I can't spoil it, getting a coin. She got a coin, her first military coin. And when I brought it up to Q, you know, if there does happen to be one last opening at the, could we bring Liberty to? And he was like, you know, I really like to have each kid experience this with their veteran parent one-on-one first. And then once they both get that experience, then you guys can come together. And I was like, okay, cool. And Liberty, my oldest, was great about it, right? And the mom in me is like, oh, I want to do whatever I can to accommodate her so she doesn't feel sad or left out. And then I have to remember that I have to take my own advice and say it's okay for our kids to work through hard emotions. So I helped her work through those hard emotions, right? And she was great about it because I have made her work through hard emotions earlier in life as well. But you know, I get that mom moment of like, oh, I want to save her from feeling left out and feeling sad. And yeah, so I still struggle with that too. But I do have to put my mouth where what is the saying?
Put your money where your mouth is.
My money where my mouth is. But yeah, it was really special.
Or take your own medicine. I like that one.
Yeah, take my own medicine. Yeah. But it was really special to do it with Autumn, our youngest, right? And she's actually been on a mission trip to Honduras with my parents before. And so she's kind of a little savage when it comes to being uncomfortable and hardships. But really just to watch her connect a little deeper with my husband, her dad on the trip, and with me, and just watching her little servant heart was really fun, and knowing like, hey, that's a reflection of parenting. Really, your kids are a reflection of you. And so when she was getting like compliment after compliment after compliment, like, I have to, Lord, help keep me humble, you know, because like, thank you. No.
You know what's really cool on this trip that happened that has never happened before? Ice cream man showed up.
Yeah.
I've never had an ice cream man show up on the job site. I couldn't believe it.
With the ice cream truck, with the noise and
the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the tortilla guy comes by. I buy tortillas every year. Like, that happens. But an ice cream truck, that was really cool.
Ice cream truck, yeah. So she got everybody ice creams, not with her own money. But she was running around handing people ice creams. And Q's over here like, oh, I'm not eating it. I'm not going to get sick. I'm like, you're the freaking leader. You should have warned us.
You guys were already eating did you see me eating it? Did you see me? Nope.
No.
Did anybody get sick, though?
No.
No, nobody got sick. Oh, praise God.
Yeah. So, and like, shout out to Corin and Hawken too. Those 16, 12-year-old. Oh my gosh, they're kids.
They've been on, I don't know, half dozen trips with me over the years. Those kids are amazing.
I say it all the time, right? Like to parents who I hear say, hey, there's starving kids in Africa. Eat your food. That goes in one ear and out the other. Like, your kids have to experience the starving kids in Africa, right? Not everybody can take their kids to Africa to show them the starving kids.
No, but every one of you can go down and volunteer at the homeless shelter once a month and show your kids what it's like to serve others. And it gives them perspective, and they're a lot more grateful and thankful for the things that they have. Yes. When I started taking my kids at a young age, this is exactly what happened. It's one of the best things I ever did as a parent. And it wasn't on purpose. It was kind of by accident. Like, oh, you're coming with me.
Yeah.
But I saw the results of that. And now I try to teach that to other people. You don't have to go down to Mexico and do all of these things. You can do this right in your own community.
Yeah, but you should. If you're an American, you're better off than 98% of the world.
Yeah.
So give up your Starbucks for 3 months or a year and set the money aside to go on a mission trip with your family. Because again, at the end of the day, every single person that goes on these builds with us, every single one That's what they say is, I was so much more blessed doing this than the family who got the home, right? There is so much healing through service. There's so much dopamine and oxytocin and all the good
Serotonin,
things that
endorphins.
come, and implementing that in your children's lives and your own life, that's the kind of genuine joy I want to feel, right? Not these quick fixes of TikToks and a shopping spree, and those are so superficial and materialistic. The genuine growth and the genuine transformation and the genuine joy really genuinely comes from serving other people in need.
Yeah. And here's the tip for you guys, that when you do something like this, you have one of these experiences, to write it down. And so you can recall it. So you can make a cognitive choice to recall this positive memory to boost those chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
We did this year in our house, where we took all of the photos of all of the builds for every year, and they are throughout my house, not just in Mexico, but in the work we've done in Cambodia, Kenya, Ukraine, Haiti, Honduras, all these places I've been over the years. We took these team photos and we put them all over our house as a reminder of all the great things God has done. And you need to do that. Otherwise you forget. In the Bible, it says, don't be like the man who looks in the mirror, and when he turns away, he forgets his own face. So the tip for you is, you have those core memories that are important. Put them on your wall. Write them down so you remember them. That helps you build that mental resiliency, because when you're thinking about that memory, your subconscious mind, when it recalls the memory, your body experiences it again. The same thing with trauma, but you can do it for positive things, which is exactly what happened for me and what happened for Nancy on this build. So you can take that same thing and use it for good.
So it's kind of like with going back to Mexico, right? I realized I hadn't been since like 2001, because I just kind of, I don't know, there was something that changed in me, and I wasn't getting the same thing out of it that I was before. And so I stopped going. And I feel like in that area, Aaron kind of left me in the dust, because he was still going out and he was still doing Mexico, and he was still growing and helping people. And I kind of wasn't. And so when I went this trip and I watched the growth in the people that I knew from before, like you and Jessica, it totally changed my perspective of like, dang, I better step up my game, right? Like I better get out and do more of this.
It was flawless when I came back.
Yeah?
Like the way that they were doing it, and man, I was on the edge of my seat through the teaching, and it's just, the growth of everybody and just how much I got out of it. Like they ironed out all the wrinkles, and it was just from that fast forward point from when I last went to this, was like, I couldn't believe the change. And then people are saying they see the same change in me. And I know I've changed because I've had to learn some life lessons.
Yeah.
And
Same.
yeah. I didn't really help people's ministry too much before. I was the problem. And
I think I was the problem. When you have two problems.
Yeah.
That's okay though.
So
I mean,
I made sure when I came down this time that I was in the right mindset to come down and try to help, try to enjoy the experience more than try to push.
Yeah, trying to give more than you're taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that we can probably agree and conclude on the fact that them not having their act together in the beginning and the classes and stuff not being dialed in is why you and I acted out so much. I think we just continue to blame it on that, and it'll be fine.
There we go. Don't cut that. No.
Right.
So remember, if you guys like the content here, subscribe, put some comments in there, and we'll do another one of these videos based on your guys' content. And as always,
we are here to educate you, empower you, and encourage you to share this with your friends and family on your journey.
For the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sgt Q.
I'm Doc Jess.
And we're out.